is Brittney Livingston, and today I will talk to you concerning whether news media actually manipulates the American public, and if so, in what ways. Media manipulation is a topic that is brought up repeatedly but has never been proven real among American society. In order to truly understand what media manipulation is, propaganda, fear, and patriotism will be examined. These are three words that makes journalism as interesting as it is today. These tactics are used to project to the public what is going on every day in a movie-like manner. I will break down the psychological thought process of the human mind concerning the entertainment sector, the media-government relationship, and the outcome it has on today's society. Let's begin talking about the American society. The American society is one that is fast-paced and influential. Americans have a mindset that they are too busy to do more than necessary. This including researching topics for themselves. Americans tend to trust the news media to provide the important information that is needed for a daily life. A statistic from Frontline shows that 57% of Americans watch television to get their news information. 40% of Americans read the newspaper. 36% listen to news radio stations. And the rest, which are 23% of Americans, get their news from online sources, whether it is a newspaper site or the aggregators. This leaves very few, if any, room for individuals who research information on their own. Bill Moyers would say the public has been transformed into a vast crowd, a permanent audience, waiting to be amused. Television stations, newspapers, and internet sources cripple society in the ability to want to research for themselves. One psychologist by the name of Hugo Munsterberg found out that the human brain processes information and moving pictures differently than actually being there to witness the event for themselves. For example, the depth of a boat can be seen as moving while a motionless backdrop is only there. This is done to make scenes more interesting, lively, and fun for the person watching them. Media also does this because they know it enlightens the brain. A section adult teaches kids is their imagination. Imagination is needed to start the brain functions that are triggered due to television. MacDonald said, just as our mind molds the objective world to our own interest through attention, imagination, and emotions, so too our minds bring together the detail of the motion picture to form a coherent story. When viewing television, whether it is a movie clip from CNN or an actual movie, the brain must process the information as if it was inside whatever is happening on the television screen. The brain triggers feelings to mentally make you feel as if you are there. Techniques such as flashbacks and cutaways serve to stimulate memory, imagination, and attention processes. When these emotions are triggered, the memory glands in the brain remembers that this was an incident that happened to themselves. When being brought back to life in the brain or remembered, it takes the individual to tell themselves that this piece of information that is being replayed in the brain was viewed on television and was not a part of their lives. This simply means the brain must lie to itself in order to have emotion to what is happening on the television. Munsterberg said, mediated communication has its impact by presenting material to our minds must accept as real or true so that we can understand the communication. In order to conduct research on people, a researcher must go through the necessary steps made by the government. One of the steps is to learn and respect the autonomy and justice of each participant. All researchers must go through the proper training, fill out the proper paperwork, and get approved by the government in order to conduct any study of humans. The government conducts and funds the research of large masses of individuals because they use the findings to help govern the United States. The sector that uses this information the most is the Federal Communication Commission, or better known as the FCC. Now, how does this tie into the example and the brain pattern that I showed you earlier? Let's take a closer look at exactly what the FCC is and how they came about. The FCC is an independent United States government agency. It was established by the Communication Act of 1934 and is charged with regulating interstate as well as international communications by radio, television, wire, satellite, and cable. The FCC jurisdiction covers the 50 states, the District of Columbia, and U.S. possessions. There is no other sector that produces the type of information that the FCC does. For the FCC to distribute what companies own what channels and radio stations, decide what companies are able to provide cellular phones, be in control of the United States security, and tell the media what to show the public, this bureau is the public's only way of getting knowledge. The government designed for this to happen and has no intentions on changing it. Let's take a closer look at how the government truly balances out who owns what. The Media Bureau is only allowed to let companies own 8 sections. Those were the laws that the FCC made up themselves over 3 decades ago. But now, with the FCC allowing deregulation of certain laws concerning ownership, and companies are now owning more than 8 stations, the global media market has become dominated by the same 8 transitional corporations, which are General Electric, AT&T, Disney, Time Warner, Sony, News Corporation, Viacom and Seagram, and Germany-based conglomerate. Notice how the small group of companies owning everything in the entertainment sector has to get approval by the FCC. These companies are not only being given the approval to have so many sectors from the Enforcement Bureau, the FCC regulates what is being shown on television for the public by the Office of Media Relations. The American public has not a clue the extent of how closely related the government and media really are. The government is using what Mr. Perry Giles calls camouflage propaganda. The ideas that are spread by the government to the handful of companies that own the entertainment sector all have an underlying purpose. There is no mistake that the government has a separate sector that owns the creation of communication laws, how they decide to produce information to the public, and how every entertainment genre falls into place with the news information. The FCC's main purpose is to create a vicious, unacceptable cycle that the public cannot rid themselves of, thus leaving the public no option but to hang on every word of the government. News media produces fear and propaganda that forces patriotism. Yes, media manipulation is real, and yes, it affects all Americans.